Welcome to The Feast Life, where we empower you, the modern homeschool mom, to create a life and homeschool you love, one founded on faith, family, freedom, and fun. I'm your host, Julie Ross, creator of the award-winning homeschool curriculum, A Gentle Feast, and a certified Christian life coach. For more information on today's episode and to access my free gift for you, check out thefeastlife.me. Charlotte Mason once said, "Life should be all living, not a mere tedious passing of time." So on this show, we seek to savor the feast of life. Girl, grab your favorite beverage and pull up a chair. You are welcome at this table. Hello, this is Julie Ross. Welcome to the Feast Life podcast. So, do you ever feel like the noise of life is stealing your peace? Today, I'm going to sit down with Sarah Clarkson, author of Reclaiming Quiet, Cultivating a Life of Holy Attention, to explore how even in a loud and busy world, especially as homeschool moms, you can rediscover the power of quiet. She shares heartfelt stories, practical advice, and spiritual wisdom. This episode is an invitation to embrace the gift of quiet in the midst of life's chaos. Let's dive in. Hello, everyone. Welcome to The Feast Life. I'm your host, Julie Ross, and I'm so excited today to be here with the beautiful, lovely Sarah Clarkson.
Oh, thank you so much for having me.
Yes, I just realized I was like, I don't know what your married last name is. I'm like, wait a minute. Is she still going by Sarah Clarkson? Okay, perfect.
It's my public name.
Okay.
Name, nom de plume.
Yes, I appreciate that for sure. So the last time I had you on, I was hosting the Charlotte Mason Show podcast back in 2020, and we were talking about your book, Book Girl, right?
Yes.
And a lot has happened in your life in the past 4 yeyears, hasn't it?
It has indeed.
Just catch us all up on what has happened and what you're currently up to.
So in 2020 we last spoke, so I must have had a baby. I must have had Samuel, who was my baby at that point. But we've had two more babies since, so he was my second. We now have four. Okay. Lucy is 3 now, and Eleanor is 15 months. So
wow.
I know. So that, and then in the meantime, Thomas finished his curacy, which is, if you're a priest in the Anglican Church, you serve 3 years under another priest as a training, almost like it's not an internship, it's more than that, but you basically serve under another priest for 3 years, and then you're free to go seek work wherever you'd like. And so we've ended up back in Oxford at a little parish in the south. We're in the city proper, but on the south end. And yeah, my husband oversees 2 churches, and we live in the Victorian vicarage that is directly across from one of them, with a great willow tree in the garden. And I spend most of our time with our little ones. Our oldest is now 6. So I have 6, 5, 3, and 15 months. And I write a few hours a week when I can manage it. And I guess I've done another couple of books as well. So I should say that. This beautiful piece is Reclaiming Quiet. Both books are hard.
No big deal, right? And you were were you back in school in that time period too?
No, so I finished my master's here at Oxford in 2019.
Okay.
I've officially been back in school since then, though, doing much of reading. And never say never.
Okay. I love Oxford. I've been there twice.
Oh.
Is living there as magical as I think it is?
It really is. I've lived here on and off for over 10 years now, and it still feels magical. I think it's a city of history and movement, but there's still these corners where you can step off the road into these kind of timeless, suspended spaces of beauty, of thought, of worship, of prayer. I was studying this morning in the library, the upper reading room, and
I'm so jealous.
It is. It's magical. I feel so blessed to be here. And something I've discovered since having children is what a green city Oxford is, in the sense of it's surrounded by parks and gardens and public walking spaces. So
lots of beautiful outdoor spaces with the river.
A lot of wandering outdoors, which is really fun.
That's such a gift for your kids too, to be able to have that in the middle of what can be like a very big city in places too.
Very much so.
Yeah.
And an hour from London, which is very nice.
Yeah, I live vicariously through you on Instagram, so I appreciate all the posts that you put about Oxford. And I have to tell you this. So my oldest daughter turns 24 today, or turned 24.
Oh,
And I was 24 when I had her. So I'm having this like weird full circle moment here of all the feels. And
I bet.
I was thinking about how when I first started being a mom, I had absolutely no idea what I was doing, even though I had read all the books to prepare myself, and just felt so lost. And one of the bombs that helped me so much as an early mom was your mother's books.
Oh, how
And
lovely.
I know, and now I'm talking to you. And it was so beautiful reading this book because I feel like your new book, Reclaiming Quiet, Cultivating a Life of Holy Attention, which I will link to in the show notes, I got to see you as a mom. And so
Yes.
it was this interesting full circle moment, I think, for a lot of us who had followed your mom for a really long time to now you
Amazing.
see her in you and you in the way that you're mothering and the way that you're
Hmm.
viewing your life. And I don't know,
Yeah.
weird full circle existential moment there.
How fun. I had not thought of that aspect. That's a very fun one.
Yes, and I think this is great because it really gives moms such hope and beauty, just like your mom's writings do. I'm just going to read a quote that I wanted to start with. So you said, "My faith has deeply shifted in the past 10 years, perhaps particularly in the last few I've spent in trying to understand what it means to live a quiet life. In the beginning, I thought it would primarily mean I'd finally enact all the ideals I've had for so long. Severe discipline with my phone, an ordered prayer life, and silent evenings spent in contemplation rather than a television miniseries or distraction. I did not expect when I found. Whenever anyone asks me these days what my current book is about and I answer quiet, they usually laugh a little mockingly, eyeing my four small children, or perhaps the church life my husband and I keep, along with its great reams of hospitable commitments. I know I respond, trying to accept the divine joke in good humor. I've never had less quiet in my life, but I think that actually may be the point. And I love that so much because, especially homeschool moms, our lives aren't very quiet. And so, like when I first heard that you're coming out with this book, I was like, that does not apply to my life. There's no quiet. And I, like you, I have these ideals of someday it'll be so quiet. And then I'm like, but this is now. And how do I find the balance and incorporate quiet
Yeah.
in the midst of chaos all the time? So, what do you mean by that's actually the point of finding quiet when there is hardly any quiet?
I think something I began to realize as I really contemplated the topic and thought about it in my own life was that I think we treat quiet a little bit as a specialist topic, like it's
Hmm.
for the super disciplined or the religious or the introverted or the lonely. It's something
Yes.
that not everyone does. It's a specialist thing. And I think
Hmm.
we see it primarily in terms of abstractions. Like I can be quiet if I subtract my
Yes.
children, my obligations, my
Yeah.
relationships,
If
you
life
know.
will just pause, then I can
Yes.
find
And
quiet.
so I started this out thinking, I think I just need to get up at 4 a.m. every morning. And
Mm.
obviously, with three children under, what was it at that time? Under four, I wasn't getting enough sleep to
Yes.
even imagine such a thing.
No.
Still not.
Yeah. Yeah.
Let's be honest. And so I began my whole idea of quiet shifted within myself as I
Mm,
began to research and write this book because I realized that I had thought of it primarily as something I should attain. And increasingly, I came to see it as a homecoming, as something that is available to me at every
mm,
point. I seek quiet not because I earn it, but because it is something already given. And so
mm,
my return to it as a response is the accepting of an invitation rather than the proving of my strength or the earning of quiet as a reward. Quiet has already been given. Quiet is
mm,
the space where I come home to meet with God's voice within myself, with the person He's given me in my interior world. And I think once I
mm,
began to see that, I began to realize quiet is something that every single person needs. And it has to be something. Are some people called to lives of intense or disciplined quiet in different ways? Absolutely.
yeah.
But quiet as a daily discipline is something I think every single person on earth is born to, called to, born to, however you want to think about it. It is our birthright. We
Mm,
need quiet in order to imagine, in order to grieve, in order to pray, in order to, you can't make what you haven't imagined. You can't bring into being what you haven't conceived. And
mm,
quiet is at the heart of all those things. And so once I turned from seeing it as a specialist topic that then in many ways would mean I couldn't do it, I had
right.
to ask myself, what does this mean for me? I haven't had more than 5 minutes of quiet time in 5 years.
Yeah.
There's a lot of people around the world who haven't either and may never. I
Mm,
think once I started thinking about the whole world with its many working and suffering people,
yes.
I decided that
Consciousness.
quiet had to be something other than a heroic discipline I attained by
Mm.
much grit and making everybody around me stop needing things. It had to be It
Oh,
has to
that's
be
so
mixed.
true. That is so true. And I see so many of the homeschool moms I coach, I just don't have time for this. I know
Yeah,
I need this. I know I need to pray. I know I need to journal, but there's just no time. And when I actually get to start digging in deeper with them, it's
yeah,
because they don't feel that they're worthy
yeah,
of saying no to all the other obligations,
yeah.
tyranny of the urgent, to get it. And I love what you said because it's a gift. It's not something you earn. And I see that like I can earn the quiet when the house is clean and all the chores are done and we've done all the lesson plans perfectly for the day.
Yes.
Now I get to have quiet, like a reward, like you were saying, and seeing it as something like, no, like you are inherently worthy of quiet because you are God's child and he's waiting for you. I love that concept of the invitation. And in the book, you talk about the kitchen table in your heart. Can you explain that for people? I loved that metaphor.
I think so. It started for me years ago when I read Teresa of Avila's Interior Castle. She was teaching her sisters at the time, medieval
Yeah.
convent, how to pray. And she said, you need to picture it as there's this inner room and the beloved is waiting for you there and you have to travel there. And there's lots of lizards and other things that want to keep you from getting to the room. And I loved this idea of our interior world being a home, being,
Mm,
I think it helps to visualize there's not just a blank space inside me, there's a whole world. And I think very much as a mother, I'm educating and forming the worlds of my children inside. And so I
mm,
love thinking about the formation of an interior world. And so I think the more I thought about that, and then spending, as I talk about in the book, this a month with some friends where sitting in their kitchen every day became this place of renewed quiet and really attention and wonder for me. I began to think about it as the kitchen table in my heart, where every day I'm invited into this kitchen. And it's very much of and amidst the ordinary. This is in amidst my ordinary life is where God waits to sit down with me. And the kitchen, my interior place is not right now a castle, it's a kitchen table because that's what most of
mm.
my life is made up of. But that's where the beloved waits. And I think it helped me to shift as well to see quiet doesn't necessarily mean the time that I have by myself. That's part of it. But quiet is also gives me the capacity to respond to all the needs around me with a hushed attention. So quiet happens right in the middle of the activity and the noise. It's
Mm,
very much more about my own rootedness in attention and hush and response than it is to necessarily the absence of noise and need. Quiet means I can
mm,
sit down and look into the face of a child and actually be present to them and have a stillness within me that
mm,
allows me to see
mhm,
them and the fullness of their need. That's quiet. And it's rooted in the practice of having some time alone, having time of
mhm,
prayer when I can. But that's the
mhm,
fruit of it. Quiet changes and alters the whole way you live the ordinary.
mm. That's so beautiful. Yeah. Because you want to have that inner calm, that
Yeah.
quiet, that peace in those moments of chaos. In the
Mm.
book, you talk about cultivating a life of holy attention. Can you describe in more detail what you mean by holy attention?
So I think that, so a couple of things. I think on one hand, attention is something that the world, secular and Christian, is in such need of. Live in a world that fragments and fractures our attention. We have so many screens and
100%.
so many activities. We take in so much more information in a day than anyone in history has imagined taking in just because it passes across our screens.
Mm,
So I think at a very basic way, attention is the capacity to stop the circus and be able to step back from it and retain a sense of self, retain sovereignty over my eyes and my interior world and my mind and myself. And when I say holy attention, I think specifically for those who know God and love Him and are called to be entering daily into relationship with Him. It is an aspect, a part of our discipleship. I would say
mm,
quiet is integral to discipleship because I think we are called to be a listening people as Christians. We're spoken into being by the word. And so there's a sense in which the whole of our nature is meant to listen for God's voice and to respond to it. But how can we
mm.
listen if we don't have any capacity to be quiet? And so I
Yeah.
think the practice of holy attention is the increasing learning to be a listener, to be one who at the core of their being is listening for the voice that spoke them into existence, is listening for help, is trusting in a goodness larger than my own. And so it is both attention in a general sense and holy attention in the sense of this is integral to our spiritual formation and journey and to who we are called to be as those who love Christ and are called by his name and listen to his voice in our inmost souls.
Yeah, I love that. Because we always have an opportunity at any moment to turn our attention and to
Absolutely.
control what we're thinking about and what we're
Yes.
focusing on. And what we focus on really does change the impact. So we're focusing on the fact that this lesson didn't go well, or the dishes aren't done yet, or we still have laundry, that's going to consume us. But we always have the choice to turn our attention back to God, like you're saying, no matter where we are. That kitchen table's always open and that invitation and
Yeah.
seat.
And the smallest of moments. I've come to treasure the small moments as the place
Mhm.
of real change.
Absolutely. Yeah. So I'm going to read another quote. I love it. He said, "It is a truth universal, but rarely acknowledged," love the Jane Austen reference, "that human beings are born into a state of pilgrimage. We are by nature seekers. This broken world isn't the one we're born for, and we're looking for the native ground of our inmost hope of all the days of our busy, ambitious lives. That's not usually the first way we describe ourselves or measure the outlines of a good life, but it's the reality thrumming beneath every pattern of human existence." So I love the Jane Austen reference, so I just had to point that out. I chuckled. But also this idea of kind of a pilgrimage and of growth, because I feel like as moms, we often struggle with, I have to have it all perfect and I have to have it all figured out. And especially today, as I'm reflecting on my daughter and the 24 years of being a mom, that was 100% not the case. It's a continual growth and change and process and learning and seeing mistakes and things I wish I didn't do as opportunities and continually growing and changing. How have you seen this kind of concept of pilgrimage and how does it affect your kind of view of what it means to be this quiet, holy attention kind of lifestyle?
I think in quiet, we tap in. One of the things I think we come to in quiet is a core sense of actually, I'm reaching for something more than is before me. The broken world, in all its beauty, is never enough. And that's true
Mm.
for us, it's true for our children. And so there's a real sense in which quiet allows me to remember that I am reaching for something greater than myself, that there is this journey I'm called to, there's this growth. And actually, with it, then to be able to acknowledge what is this restlessness in me? Instead of medicating it with a scroll through Instagram, let
Yep.
me ask why I'm hungry. What am I hungry
Mhm.
for? Why is there at back of my whole life this sense of a desire for a beauty or a love or a goodness that I just can't get my hands around? Because I think that's a native part of human nature. And for me, part of my home education is shaping my children to know what to do with that hunger. But quiet
Mm.
is part of it because if you don't have the time to sit with that and interrogate it and listen to it, if you think that it just needs to go away or be filled, you're going to chase 1,000 things. It's the old history of the world. I'll chase
Yep.
everything in the world until I finally figure out that nothing satisfies me. In that sense, it's an ancient training of
Yes.
our souls to not chase the vices, but
Yeah.
rather to recognize that what we hunger for isn't to be found in this world because it's beyond it. It's we're drawn.
Mhm.
It's what C.S. Lewis says. If you find in yourself a desire that nothing in this world can satisfy, it might be that you were made for a different world. But
Yes.
I think an important aspect of that, which Lewis would agree with, is we journey through this world and we aren't
Mhm.
evacuated from this world. Christ
Yep.
didn't, because Christ came into this broken world. And that's where he meets us. And it's in the midst of the creation that he made, that fell, that is being redeemed, where we listen to his spirit and follow him right through the brokenness of everyday life and yet recognize ourselves as those who are progressing to a remade world, to a new world, and that we are enfleshing that and expressing that in every aspect of our lives. When we make homes that are beautiful and ordered and full of goodness and art and music, we are reflecting. Sorry, it's my husband's phone. Sorry.
No, it's okay.
The kingdom that will come. We are reflecting what we are looking for. I'm so sorry, it's my husband's office, and I have no idea how to turn off this phone.
It's totally fine. We can totally edit it. My daughter, the one I was talking to about, edits my podcast, so she could cut it out.
I'm using his office
We'll
because it's
figure it
the
out.
quietest place with the
Is it
best
like an
connection.
intercom?
It's a phone, but it's an old style phone. And I have no idea which button I push if I'll answer it. And then they'll be like, who is this? What is the vicar doing? I don't dare do anything. I'm sorry. Usually it doesn't ring.
Oh, no, it's totally fine.
Okay.
No, it's a,
Either tell me where we were, or we could
yeah,
go.
I know, like my ADHD. I'm like, oh, where are we now? Rabbit trail. Oh gosh, I'll ask you something else I was thinking of because I can't go back because
Okay, hopefully you can salvage something from that
the,
too.
the neurons aren't connecting there. But so in your book, you mentioned going to Concord and going to Louisa May Alcott's house, and I actually
Yeah.
just took my kids there in December.
Oh, how fun.
I know it was such like a lifelong dream. It was so cool to be in there and be like, oh my gosh, she wrote right here at this desk. And really all the spaces I had visualized in my head were like, oh, this is where they were doing their plays and all this stuff. And like when I saw the movie in the 90s, I wanted to be Marmee. And
Oh,
I was like, when I grow up, I'm gonna be a mom like Marmee. And I'd always thought, Julie, that was just an ideal. are nothing like mommy. Come on, girl, what are you doing? And then when I was there, I was like, oh my goodness, I am actually a lot more like her than I thought. Like,
Of course you
my
are.
kids were always doing plays and
Yeah.
productions. My kids were always playing outside and getting in, climbing trees and doing, I gave them this like quiet, beautiful homeschool kind of life when they were growing up. And then just the way she was able to pour into her children her views and the social things that she did, and some things I didn't even know. I didn't even know a lot of the stuff about her sister going to Paris and all the stuff she did, and then working as a nurse and things. But can you bring in how traveling there and that experience? And again, I think it's like Oxford in a way. You get these great minds together, and it really does change the culture of a town, even if it's hundreds of years later. You can still
Yeah.
feel it. I don't know if that's weird,
Yeah.
but so how did that like experience tie into what you were talking about here in the story and shape your views of quiet in this kind of journey that you've been on?
I think in that particular story, it was writing about just the need for rest, for places and spaces where we can be away from the furor. I think the chapter is about halcyon days or halcyon
Yes.
rest. And
Yes. Can you
halcyon
explain that, what
is,
that means to people?
yeah, so it's a term you'll find in a lot of old books, like you see it quite a bit in Lucy Maud Montgomery, but it actually comes from a Greek myth. I'm going to blank here and not do it
Oh, I
exactly right,
bet.
but basically Alcyone was the goddess, I can't remember, it was the god of something. Basically, it's a long and involved Greek myth where a woman and her husband are turned into birds as a curse, but basically her father is the god of the seas, I think, and he makes it so that there's a certain period of time, usually near the winter solstice every year, where the seas become calm enough for her to lay her eggs, since she's a bird now.
Mhm.
I think a kingfisher in the story. And so it comes from Greek legend, and the idea of halcyon days, the days of Alcyone, are the days in which no troubles or no storms blow. And I think what I was talking about in that place is we actually need to experience times of rest. I think something my husband and I have become really vigilant about is having very strict times for family holiday and for days
Mm,
off, where we are very much not in the midst of the busyness. Neither of us are working. We're not in the forward motion that is so much of modern life. Because I think I would say rest, there's a whole history of biblical contention for rest and a Christian
mhm.
tradition of rest as
100%.
the
Yes.
place that we remember. But I think the point of it is that when we come to a place of rest, we realize that we are not the source of our own flourishing. We are not the ones in whom we trust. There
Mm,
is a greater goodness who is the provider of our rest, of our capacity to open our hands and say someone else is the one who'll provide, which I think is at the heart of what it means to be a Christian, is to someone who trusts my life, my story, my flourishing to the one who made me.
mm,
Because it's very much the pattern of a fallen world to want to take everything in our own hands and keep mighty
100%.
control on it.
Oh, yeah.
Because it is a fallen world and things are very scary and things
Yeah.
do always fall apart. But the nature of faith is to say, my life is rooted in something much bigger than myself. And
Mm,
rest is a refusal to be the source of my own provision. It's to say, I am rooted in a greater love. Doesn't mean we don't work 6 other days a week. It doesn't mean we do all the
yeah.
good things. But rest is, I think, the place where we come to remember the nature of our faith and of the love that surrounds and carries us.
Today's episode is brought to you by A Gentle Feast. A Gentle Feast offers a complete living books curriculum, an award winning early reading program, and more tools to equip you to apply Charlotte Mason's timeless philosophy into your modern homeschool. Go to agentlefeast.com to check it out. Smooth and easy days are closer than you think.
And I think in that sense, when you go to places like Concord, I think it's a very special place because the people there, it was thank you, Ralph Waldo Emerson, Henry David Thoreau, Nathaniel Hawthorne, the Brontes, another Brontes, sorry,
I
the
wish, because I've been
the
trying to
Alcotts.
get up.
This is
I've
the
been trying to
result
get
of,
up to their house for
oh man,
years too.
this is the result of no sleep for the past month. We've been on our fourth
Oh,
illness in 4 weeks.
oh my gosh.
Um,
Yes, you told me. Oh, I'm so sorry. Well,
oh
thank
no,
you for
no.
coming. I know
Oh,
it's
it's
so
a
hard when
pleasure.
little ones are sick.
Anyways, not the Brontes, but the Alcotts. But these were all people, if you read their stories, they were reaching, they were pilgrims. They
Hmm.
sensed this deep desire. You read about Louisa May Alcott's life. Her father was such an idealist. He
I
had them
had
working
no
on,
idea until I went there and I got his books on
yeah,
teaching, and I was like,
it's amazing.
oh my goodness, so much of this overlaps with Charlotte Mason. I was like, I had
Yeah,
no idea he started a school and did all this stuff.
absolutely. And dragged them through their early years eating only
Yes.
potatoes and living on lands where they were
Yeah.
starving and wearing
Yeah,
homespun
that wasn't
cloth.
good,
And
but
I laugh because he was clearly this idealist, and so was her
yes, he
mother.
was.
They're on this
Yeah.
adventure and this journey. But I
Yes.
think very much
So
the same for
beautiful.
Thoreau, who
Mm.
is saying back in the time when there was no cell phone, computer, or phone or airplane, we need to get away from the noise. I just
Yeah.
have no
I
idea
know.
what he could
I
do
know,
without a
right?
voice.
More
But these are
noise.
people, Ralph Waldo Emerson, he is always reaching for the transcendent. They were known, that circle
Yeah.
of thinkers, as the transcendentalists. They're reaching for something through
Mm-hmm.
nature, through poetry, through emotion. They're reaching for what I would call the divine. Either, and many of them
100%.
gave it that name, even if they couldn't quite go all the way in
Mm-hmm.
the Orthodox Christian account of it.
Right.
But I think in places like that, you are drawn into an atmosphere where people have reached, where there was a hunger to know and to
Mm.
find the source of something, some goodness that we yearn to find in the world. And so I think going to those places as places of rest, Oxford, Concord,
Mm-hmm.
can often tap into this larger history of the pilgrim journey for, and the quiet that accompanies that kind of journey. There always is a watchfulness, a wonder, an attention
Mm.
at the heart of that kind of seeking. And I would say that's one of the special aspects of Concord and why it was, I think, for us, a place where we could step aside out of the furor and come back to a place of quiet and ask ourselves, what is it that we seek?
Mm.
I have a morning prayer that I often use, and one of the aspects of liturgy every day is, who is it that you seek? And I
Mm.
think, and then you responsively say, I seek the Lord. Who's it? I seek, no, now I'm going blank. This is totally lack of sleep. I say this every day, but I seek the Lord my God. And I think that's what we come to in the moments of halcyon quiet. Who is it that you seek? What is
Mm.
it that you seek?
Mm-hmm. And all those people, they were all on that journey. They were all seeking,
Yeah,
and I
very
totally
much
see
so.
that in Oxford too, and the thinkers and the writers and the people that you quote a lot in the book, Lewis
Yeah.
and Tolkien and all that, all on this kind of pilgrimage together. I want to acknowledge that you are Joe in my mind when I think of Joe
Thank you. That's a
Marsh.
high
That is
compliment.
you.
Thank you. I
You're
take
so
that.
welcome. You mentioned that in the book, and I was like, oh my gosh, she's totally Joe. I totally see it. Just want to acknowledge that. But I think for a
Thank you.
lot of people that I coach, homeschool moms, they, when we dig into it, are scared of quiet
Yeah.
because it's in that quiet that they have to face the fears and the thoughts and the worries and the doubts that plague their minds. And we buffer them, and our modern world makes it so easy, like you said, to be totally distracted by Instagram, or we can buffer them with other things, food, shopping. There's a million distractions now. And so often they're like, I know I should journal, but I keep putting it off. And when you dig into it, the reason they're putting it off is because they associate it with pain, because it's
Yeah.
in that moment that they have to feel and acknowledge some of those painful feelings. So, did you experience any of that in this kind of quiet journey? And then, if so, how were you able to work through it and not see it as something like it's like, oh, this is going to be painful, but as this is going to be an enjoyable experience? This is something I need, like I need air.
Absolutely. I think one of the things I say early in the book is there are two people we meet in quiet, and the first one is ourselves. And that's can
Mhm.
often be a pretty awful thing because quiet does put us in the presence of our hunger, our need, our failure, our fear, our guilt. I think for me, I had an early training in the rigors of quiet because I was diagnosed with mental illness when I was 17 and had quite a lot of intensely dark, quiet
Mhm.
times. And I think I very quickly realized if I didn't address the darkness, it would rule me. And that's the thing that I think we forget sometimes is refusing to address these things that run below the surface of the everyday doesn't mean that we
Mhm.
aren't formed by them. In fact, we are deeply formed
Mhm.
by them, and they will
Yes.
increasingly shape our decisions, our relationships, the way we see the world, the way we reach, the way we dream for ourselves and our children. Unaddressed, those things become these mighty, gigantic darknesses in the back of
Yes.
our minds that actually do profoundly shape our decisions and our sense of self. But I think who wants to turn and face a monster? The thing is, the second
Yeah,
person
right.
being quiet is God,
Yeah.
is the one who brings light in the darkness, the one in whom there is no darkness at all. And I think that is the thing to remember in quiet is when I come to the quiet, I'm not coming only to the darkness of
Yeah.
me by myself.
Yeah,
I'm
absolutely.
coming to the darkness that Christ came to invade. And I will find him there waiting for me. That is a
Mm-hmm.
thing I truly believe with all my heart. If you know the Lord Jesus Christ, you will find him waiting at the heart of your quiet, however dark, however muddy it feels. And in his presence, you will begin to untangle and to heal the darkness because the darkness begs to be healed. And that's part of what I think that we miss in this world. I think we have mental illness and loneliness and disturbance on the rise. You look at the rates of distress among teenagers.
Yes, I
And I
have
just think
three in
that,
high school and two young adults, and it's,
oh,
yeah.
and I just think a lot of that comes from being raised in a world. We're continuing to raise our children not that way, as I'm sure you have, but
It's a
you know,
battle.
it is a battle. It is a
Yeah,
battle all the time
yeah.
because this is a world that turns us constantly from examining. We're drawn into the furor of the world. Sometimes I just think the online world, of course, there's good and beautiful things there, as there are in
Mm-hmm.
all of life, but it magnifies the voices of fallenness. We can see so much destruction and
Mm-hmm.
so much criticism, and we can compare ourselves to so many people. And how shall we heal all of the fragmented and broken things those things raise in us? Only by turning aside
Yeah.
into the quiet place where we confront the sorrows, the griefs, the inadequacies we feel and find actually that we are held, that we are
Mm.
healed. To turn from noise is not to turn to blankness, it's to turn to love. And I think that is
Yeah,
what you
it's
have to
beautiful.
remember is at the heart of quiet is love.
Yes, yes, it's so true because we think, oh, if I just get this out of my head, then it doesn't exist. And it does. And it just continues to grow and grow until you're actually confronting it
And
or
it
it takes
becomes
you
a
over.
crisis at some point.
Right. Yes. And I really do appreciate you being outspoken about your mental illness. I want to say that I feel like in your journey, I'm sure that was not an easy decision to make. And in our world, there still can be so much stigma with that. And so it has been comforting for me because we're all affected, either personally, our children, our family members. Like
Yeah.
it's if you don't have someone in your life that like most
Somebody.
likely you probably do. And but
Yeah.
there's still, oh, we don't talk about that. As no, the more we talk about it, the more we can heal and the
Yeah.
more we can help each other. So I just want to tell you I've appreciated your
Thank
willingness to
you.
talk about it. I'm sure that was not an easy decision. And one of the other topics that you talk about in here with in terms of motherhood was, and I appreciate you're very honest, and I've always appreciated about your writing, is being afraid of losing yourself in motherhood. That
Mm.
you are definitely an amazingly intelligent person and you love beauty and books and am I going to lose myself in all the mundane? And I think that can happen. And I've seen it happen in my own life, and I've seen it happen in the women I coach. And so, can you talk a little bit about your fears and then how you've overcome them and made peace with kind of that part of motherhood?
Yeah, I think coming to the cusp of motherhood for me was I entered it and I remember just being terrified the first week. There's so many beautiful things in this baby, and I suddenly was overwhelmed with love for her. But with
Yes.
that love came this sense of I will never just be me again.
Mm-hmm.
Like,
Yep.
this part of myself will be abroad in the world for the rest of my life. I am no longer an autonomous self. What in the world do
Mm-hmm.
I do with that? Because I
Yeah.
think being an autonomous self is often how we protect ourselves. If I'm only responsible for myself and my emotions, then once you start loving, you start giving yourself away and putting yourself in the hands of other people, which is the whole
Mm-hmm.
nature of the divine
Yes.
pattern of love, I would argue. But
Right.
I think I had to go through the journey and the battle of understanding that. And being drawn into it, I would say, is a godlike love of learning that what I find in motherhood is that, well, let me back up. I think much of the voices of the world around us, and I was very surrounded by these voices in my studies. I was finishing a master's degree in the first year of Lillian's life, my first daughter, first child. And there were so many voices saying, you could become so much more, keep reaching. And I, in the midst of it, just felt this deep desire both to be fully with her, but then this fear that I would lose my potential and lose my
Mm-hmm.
power in the world. And I think I write about it in the book, but there came a point where I realized I was withholding part of myself in fear. And
Mm-hmm.
I did talk to a spiritual director at some point, a priest who's just been a companion to me for many years. And we talked about the difference. There is a kind of death that comes with
Mm-hmm.
motherhood.
Yeah.
You lose the self you were.
Mm-hmm.
But it's not a destructive death. It's the death of a seed planted in the ground. And he
Mm-hmm.
said, your self will return to you in a different and new and beautiful way. And part of walking the early years of motherhood for me was learning to trust that, to give myself fully,
Mm-hmm.
to hold nothing back, to learn to be a giver. But and I think very much for me, I love having studied theology right before I became a mother because a
Yeah.
lot of what I was reading about was what does divine love look like?
Mm,
What is self-gift? And realizing that the nature, I studied a lot about power and love, and the nature of the world is to collect power, to keep power to ourselves. And the nature of God is to give it away. He gives it away in the circle of the Trinity, Father to Son to Spirit. There is this givenness of self. He gives it, we as his creation are the overflow of his love. There's
mm,
a lavish generosity in that. There's no God has no need to create us, no need to make the world. It is the overflow of affection and love. It is gratuity. And to realize that I am made in the image of a God who loves gratuitously, and this
mm,
is at heart of the nature of my motherhood, it called me into walking by faith with that for a while. But in the midst of that, realizing how can I then continue to be the self that God created me to be and loving me and
mhm.
not I do think it's a false narrative that the world gives that you'll just be obscured by motherhood. I've become more
Yeah.
myself in being a mother in so
Mm,
many ways
mhm,
as I have learned to walk the tension between self-gift and boundary, between times of, which is most of the time for me, of being totally present to my children. But then also with my husband saying there are times when I'm away, when I have
mhm,
space for quiet. And that's not leaving them. It's part of this tension of being my spiritual director says you can't give a self if you have no self to give. So
mm.
part
I
of
love that.
cultivating quiet in the midst for me is actually coming back to a place where I have a self to give. I'm not dying on some altar that God didn't call me to. I'm actually recalling the fullness of the self he created me to be and his love and his parenthood of me
Mm,
so that I can then pour it out to my children and my parenthood of them. So then hopefully they will give it to every person they meet. It is this,
mm.
but love grows. Love is not finite. There's not a finite source of love. There wasn't like and I think with that self grows. I think that's something we don't
Yeah,
always
right.
realize is that we expand
100%.
in loving another. We expand in becoming parents. It wasn't like I had this much and then I gave a fifth of my
Yeah.
pie away to my child and now I only have four-fifths
Yeah.
left. Not how it works.
Yeah.
I am me, and then I expanded more to my child. And actually, with my love for my child came more resources in
Mm,
myself. I've become someone more than I used
mhm,
to. And I think that happens in every aspect of love and friendship and parenthood and ministry. There's so many ways in which I would just say the fruitful love of God shows us
mhm,
that we are called into this burgeoning, growing life. But for me, in the midst of that, I do think it's still saying that doesn't mean that I didn't then say, ah, I need to now figure out in the midst of this life of self-gift, how to continue
mm.
to cultivate a self to give, how to
Yes.
continue to see myself as someone created and loved, how to, I believe I have a vocation to write. How
Mhm,
do I continue that in the midst of being a mother? These are not things that have to be against each other. These are things I now order and plan for in the midst of my life. And from the earliest days of our marriage and parenthood, my husband has said every day you're going away for 3 hours to journal on a Saturday morning. And,
What a
as
gift. That is beautiful.
yeah, as
That
my
is so
husband is
beautiful.
a massive gift.
Yes.
I will say so much of my life would not be possible without his generosity. Um, but that has just been obviously in small baby days, I had the baby strapped to me, but
Yeah.
once they're old enough to stay with him, he takes them with him.
I
And
love that.
yeah, I just having those spaces, it's not wrong. It's having spaces of quiet and creating an ordered life where you know to expect times alone is not a
Mhm.
withholding of yourself. That's not the withholding of yourself. That's
Yeah.
actually creating a way to sustain a life of love. And quiet is
Yeah.
always sustaining love. That's part of its power.
I love this kind of metaphor of you're dying to self, but it's in that death that you're creating the fertile soil for that new
Absolutely.
seed, that new you
Yeah.
to start to grow. And
Yeah.
it's only in that process of motherhood and dying to yourself that new growth can even happen. But that you do have to cultivate it. You can't just hope it
No. Yeah.
grows.
Very much.
And so I love that you're like intentional. And I say to people all the time, if you want to learn a new hobby or read a book or grow your mind as a mom, like you must schedule it. It must be on your calendar.
Absolutely.
It can't be like, oh, if I have extra time, I will go write today. Like you're never going to have extra time.
It's never going to
Yeah.
happen.
So I love that you're so purposeful about it. And again, it comes down to what you were talking about earlier of seeing yourself as worthy of
Yeah.
having that time.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
you are worthy as, yes, you're a mom, but your role as a daughter of the king hasn't changed. And you're
No.
still worthy to become the person and be on mission and serve. all the things.
And God gave your children you as a mother, which means you in
Mm,
the full giftedness and vocation of your life, of your special creation as God's child. If you don't cultivate that, you won't have that to give to them. I think I've increasingly realized part of my mothering of my children is drawing them into the things that I love,
I
into the
love it.
places where I'm gifted. And this is
Yes.
part of my legacy as their mother is,
Absolutely. And they need to see
yeah,
that in you because that's
yeah.
inspiring. This is a life worth living. I want to have that and grow as a mom and a person too, and not,
I
oh,
model to them what it looks like to be a person. Yeah.
yes, absolutely. It's so beautiful. Okay, one last quote here. And tying it all back to homeschooling for my audience here, you wrote, "It's easy to look back on childhood or even an earlier season of adult life with the diamond lens of nostalgia." So true. "I'm sure there was just as much fallenness and struggle around me as there is now, but there was also a lot more boredom. That's putting it in negative terms because I know it now for one of the greatest gifts of my formation. The hours of late afternoon stretched empty each day. I could play outdoors, I could read a book, I could craft or draw or find a few friends and siblings to entertain me. But often those hours opened and closed in a great swath of independent solitude. In that space, so difficult to call these days for child and adult alike, I gained one of the greatest gifts of quiet, imagination." So can you talk a
Mhm.
little bit about this kind of like that homeschool experience you had and how that cultivated imagination in you then, but also how it's continuing to shape you as an adult.
Yeah, I think from very early on, my parents understood that a lot of what children need is this space to imagine. Imagination is this wild and beautiful force, I think, in childhood, is this gift of God. I think it's one of the ways we most image being made in God's image. What is one of the first things we see about God in Scripture? Well, we see a God who is imagining the whole universe
Yeah.
and calling it into being. He's creative. He's coming up with new things and plants and things. And I think this is what we tap into when we give children space to have silence, is the capacity to craft interior worlds from which they can draw creativity of all sorts. But I
Mm-hmm.
think I was very much shaped by those rhythms of not just accomplishing lots of schoolwork, but of reading a lot, which is a kind of quiet as well.
Mm-hmm.
And then having space for that to foment and take root and for
Yeah.
something to happen in the midst of it.
Yeah.
And I think that one of the most powerful forces that we just so discounted in this world, and I think we even discounted educationally because we think
Mm.
we need to fill children's
Yep.
time with activities and learning,
100%.
and
Yes. Mm-hmm.
actually quiet, boredom, space, spaciousness is
Mm-hmm.
one of the greatest gifts we can give a child, because in that they're born with a natural capacity to encounter the world as wondrous. It's something we have to fight for as adults, but it's native to children to
Mm-hmm.
encounter the whole world as sky, a leaf. Like everything is an astonishment, and
Yeah.
that's their native gift. And quiet is the place that we give that. You send a child out of the garden and say, and obviously my children, but I don't want to go to the garden without you. I can't stay up for that. Yes, okay. That's just nature children. Some
Yes.
children. My children certainly. But and yet then you send them out and you watch. A fort is built, a story begins.
Mm-hmm.
Mama, I found this bug, and there's three new birds in the
Mm-hmm.
birdhouse. And this is quiet in that sense, is the ground of creativity. And without it, I would argue that very little new creation is going to take place.
Yes.
And I sometimes wonder what's going to happen with a generation that is so dependent on phones to
I
entertain.
know.
I think we've given
Terrifying.
creativity to screens. So the space that used to be open and unstructured, where we would go inside
Mm-hmm.
of ourselves
Mm-hmm.
to imagine, to play, to entertain ourselves, has now been taken over by something that brings children out of that inner world and to become dependent on someone else to entertain. But how are we
Mm-hmm.
going to have creators who create in the next? I'm really curious about how this will work with when
Yes,
we
me too.
lots of us
and
really dependent
and
on screen.
and AI creating a lot of things for us, so we don't have
Well,
to.
that's the
Yes.
problems we've given over. Let us create humans who continue to create new things. But I think cultivating that is at the heart of education, because whether it's Charlotte Mason, whether it's my parents writing about it, whether it's
Mm-hmm.
any number of really great educators, I think there's an agreement across the board. And it's fascinating. My husband was a school teacher in the Netherlands before we married. And so
Oh
we've always
wow, I
chatted.
didn't know that. Okay.
Yeah, he's a primary school teacher before he became a priest. And so we've always had a lively discussion about
Right.
homeschooling. But we both
Okay.
realized from basically the first time we met, we had a similar philosophy to childhood and to education,
That's
which
great. It's
was
so important to be on the
get
same
both
page.
subordinate,
Yeah.
um,
Yep.
a spacious life, one that is not
Mm,
hurried. Yeah. And in that grows. And imagination it's such a misunderstood thing. I think we think of it as imagination isn't real. Actually, imagination, as Lewis would say, everybody should go read C.S. Lewis on this.
Yes.
Reason is one way, one organ. Imagination is the organ of meaning. We are
Mm,
constantly using imagination to bring meaning to the world around us. And it's the way we create new things within the world. You cannot create what you have not imagined. And you
mm,
can't imagine if you have no time to go into the
yes.
inward land of your own soul and mind to create it. So
Yes.
it is one of the greatest educational gifts I think you can give a child. I think spaciousness is one of the words I've thought a lot about for how I want to educate my
Mm,
children.
love that
All
word.
beauty and books and blah, blah, blah.
Yeah.
But space. I want us to have a
Space.
spacious life,
Unhurried. Yes. I love that.
unhurried. Yeah,
Yeah. It's something
yeah,
I talk a lot about on the podcast, and I bring in a lot of guests to talk about
yeah.
this, and I'll stand on my soapbox all day long
Well
about
done.
it because it's, I think, so vital, but it's so hard in our society with this pressure of trying to keep up with everything and if trying to fill out those spaces. It's really interesting. There's a parents review article from the early 1900s, and he's talking about this gift of imagination that we need to give our children.
Yes.
And he mentions, but we feel the temptation to fill up any void of time with tango lessons. And I'm like laughing. So like,
What would you do with TikTok?
yeah, I know. Or to lecture while we're waiting for the doctor. And it's what we do is, oh, we're in the car. We must listen to an
Yeah,
audiobook. We're waiting for the doctor. We must be doing a lesson. It's like we have to fill every nook and cranny of our children's days, but then we don't realize we're also filling every nook and cranny of our imaginations.
yep,
So I think there's some people who have, like you and I, are like, oh, yes, our children need this. But my day must be full of every minute must be accounted for and must be full of all
yeah,
busyness at all times. And then they were like, that the need for having an imagination doesn't stop
no.
when you're an adult. In fact, I would say you probably need more imagination.
Absolutely, because the world gets harder, and imagination is
Yeah.
the means by which we navigate a broken world in which the circumstances around us don't give rise to much hope. Imagination is the organ of hope. It is how
Mhm.
we look beyond the brokenness to create lives of wholeness and order for ourselves, for our children, and for every other broken person that comes our way.
So, how do you cultivate your imagination on a regular basis?
Oh, reading. I
Yes.
am a reader. It is my refuge. And a lot of novels. I read books
Mm,
that create stories in my mind. I walk. I'm a nature. I love being out in nature. I think
yeah.
the spacious quiet of nature is a magic and a healing of its
Mm,
own. I have a lot of images in my house. I love art. And I think the older I've gotten, the more I've realized having images that
mm,
show me a glimpse into a different world, a glimpse
hmm.
into this scene, a glimpse into that story is actually hugely helpful for me in surrounding myself, not with just not cluttered images, not too
Right,
many,
right.
but the chosen ones that help
Yeah.
me engage when I'm sitting down to rock my baby at night, looking at a
Mm,
certain picture or image. It's just hugely helpful for me in opening up the world of imagination. It becomes this first stopping point on the way to my own interior
yeah.
world.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I love that.
I think primarily reading, art in our house, and then walks in nature for me. Those are my main
Now,
ways.
are you walking by yourself or do you have your people? Or does it really matter? You can find quiet in both.
Both. For me, the deepest imagination comes when I'm walking by myself.
Yeah.
That's my sweet time.
Yeah.
But there is still some aspect of it coming even in the midst of walking children. And I've learned when we're on long day, I've made a lot of our summers just about being outdoors
Mm,
quite all the time and just going for long walks. And I always have a book and a notebook with me. And when they go off and get stuck into all sorts of things, I just find all sorts of ideas and thoughts come in the
mm,
midst
hmm.
of that. And I practice what I call contemplative reading. I think it very much came from I never got to read more than a paragraph uninterrupted, but it became I was like, I have a paragraph. I will now mold this while I the baby or while they're reading. I'm working.
Yes.
These patterns by which to walk forward. You figure
Mm.
out the ways you can journey in the smallest of steps, even amidst these full days.
Yeah, that's so beautiful. As we wrap up here, for moms who are like, I need more quiet in my life, what baby step would you tell them to start with?
I'll say two baby steps. I'll cheat.
Oh,
Um,
two. No, I'm just kidding.
I think I have become convinced of the potency of morning and evening rituals.
Yes, 100%. I agree with you 100%. So you
It
can,
can be
you got
5 minutes.
permission to
It
do
can be
both baby
3 minutes.
steps.
Yep, yep. It can be 5 minutes, it can be 3 minutes. But if you can begin the day with 2 minutes
Mm,
of attention, a scripture verse, and a prayer. My prayer right now, I had a spiritual director say, Sarah, don't worry about praying. Just say the Jesus prayer. Lord Jesus Christ, have mercy on me, a sinner.
mhm,
And if I can say that, and if I can still my heart for 2 minutes, it creates a whole different day. It frames
100%.
my existence in a powerfully different way than if I stumble into the day, look at my phone and stumble downstairs to go, oh my gosh, I have 4 children who have needs.
And you want breakfast again today?
What, you want to learn things? Yeah. So I think that, and then closing the day, which I'm often worse at, but having 2 minutes for reflection. Sometimes for me, it's just having a novel that I read for 10 minutes at night.
Mm-hmm.
A short prayer. My husband and I try to say Compline together, a night prayer together sometimes. These little rituals that open and close the day, which means then my understanding of time, because I think quiet is often very much about our use of time. My understanding of time is not a stumble from screen to screen. It's actually rooted, my life is rooted outside of screens. It's rooted in this moment, this home where I live, these people that I love, this God whom I serve, and the beauty of the world around me. And if I can root myself in those places in the morning, the evening, then even the 5 minutes becomes this potent frame. It's like it reenchants the whole rest of the day. So
Yeah,
I would
100%.
say that would be my very first thing to say.
Those are great. And there is a time, I would encourage you, that they get older and they're teenagers and you can't wake them up for the life of you. And then you get lots of quiet in the morning.
It's hard to imagine right now, but that will happen someday.
It's coming, right? And then at night, when you want the quiet, then they want to talk to you at like 11 p.m. So it's a whole different.
This is what I've been told too.
Yes. But that's the thing, is it's always a journey. It's always a process. And okay, this might work for this season. Okay, now it's not working because now our life is changing, or our kids are older, or we're moving, or whatever. And then, but keeping those anchors, I think, are so important, and having those rituals and those habits, and then they can adjust as you adjust and your kids adjust. Thank you so much for taking the time to talk to me today. I will pray that you all will feel better soon. I will link to your book in the show notes, but how else can people get in touch with you if they want to hear from you?
So you can go to my website, is just kind of everything is sarahclarkson.com. Where I mostly write is on my Substack, so just sarahclarkson.substack.com. And then I'm around on Instagram at Sarah Wonders, Wanders. Those are the main places I hang out.
And you did a whole series on Instagram, like Advent poems, that this year or last year?
I did Advent poems last year probably, and then I did 40 days of reclaiming quiet kind of to open the book. So
yeah, so that's a good way of
reading
people
aloud and quotes,
want like little snippets of something on the
Exactly,
go.
exactly.
And we don't want to encourage screens, but it is really good. I love that you
We'll
did
use
that.
screens redemptively.
Yes, exactly. I appreciate that. Thank you so much again for taking the time to talk to us.
What a pleasure. Thank you for having me so much.
Yeah. I hope you enjoyed today's conversation. Sarah is so delightful and always a breath of fresh air. Let's wrap up with some key takeaways. Number 1, quiet is an invitation, not a reward. Quiet isn't something we earn, it's a gift that's always available. Sarah reframes quiet as a homecoming where we meet God in the midst of our ordinary lives. Number 2, we need morning and evening anchors. Simple rituals like a brief prayer or reflection can frame your day, bringing intentionality and peace to even the busiest seasons of life. Number 3, the power of imagination. We all need unhurried, spacious time, as this fosters creativity and hope. This is essential for both children and adults. Sarah shared how her homeschooling during her childhood cultivated her imagination and how it continues to shape her life today. Number 4, facing ourselves in quiet. Quiet often brings us face to face with our fears and struggles, but it's also where we find healing in God's love. Sarah encouraged us to embrace this discomfort as part of our growth. Number 5, the tension of this self-gift. Motherhood involves a kind of dying to self, but it also expands us, creating fertile soil for personal growth and deeper love. Number 6, Sarah mentioned this concept of halcyon days. Inspired by ancient myths and her own journey, Sarah emphasized the importance of creating intentional spaces for rest as a reflection of faith and trust in God. And last but not least, take some practical steps to start finding quiet in your own life. Start small. Just 2 minutes of focused prayer in the morning and evening can profoundly impact your sense of peace and purpose. I hope you find some quiet in your busy week. Thanks for listening. Hey there, Julie Ross here. I just wanted to say thank you for listening to today's episode. If you like this show, it would mean the world to me if you would leave a positive review in iTunes. This really does help people learn about the podcast. And each month I will pick a winner to receive a free gift. Don't forget to check out all the free resources we created for you at thefeastlife.me. Thank you.